all there. Onboarding status, financial summaries, country insights, action items, and more. Try us for free.
Welcome back, everybody. I hope you had great lunch. For the people online, great to have you back. For the people here in the Amplifier, join us over here, please, or try to be somewhat silent for our next speaker. So there's two things very interesting about the next speaker, or the next keynote. And the first thing is that he used to be a rapper, right? Are you still a rapper? Maybe. I do think he's just going to speak instead of rap for us, but that's really interesting, makes me curious. And the other thing which is interesting is, again, the perspective that the next keynote speaker is bringing. There was actually already a question raised this morning during Ivo's session around, so how do you network in this remote session? And that's actually the topic of this keynote. So the perspective that he's bringing is networking in the broadest sense of the word. So yeah, how do you network with colleagues, but also how do you use a network like LinkedIn in your career? So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Gabriel Rath.
Thank you, Peter. Hello, Amplifier. How are you feeling? I think you just had your food, and I think we have to warm up. How are you feeling? That's better. My name is Gabriel. I'm from Rostock, the probably most beautiful city in northern Germany at the Baltic Sea. I came from Rostock this morning with the train. Who has been to Rostock? I see 2 or 3 hands. And I welcome you to my keynote, my topic, which is called The Power of Networks in the Future of Work. I'm very happy to be here because it's all about networking here. I think you're networking already, talking with each other. Hello on the screens. We have a lot of possibilities, and we are human beings, so networking seems to be very normal to us and for us. But I think there is even more to it because we're talking about the future of work, and we have these big questions. How do we attract talent? What about employer branding? All these questions. And I think it's a lot about networking, community building, and maybe networking not only as something we do, but maybe even as a skill, a future skill. So before we jump into it, I start with this guy. Lothar Matthäus, he was one of the most successful soccer players in Germany, and I chose him because of 2 reasons. The first is because we want to kick off a little discussion about networking, so I'm looking forward to your questions later. And he once said this sentence, my English is good, but my German is better, so please excuse if there are maybe 1 or 2 words I've been missing, because normally I'm giving talks in German. So let's jump right into it. This is me in my new office here in Berlin. I started a new job at the Friedrichstraße unter den Linden. And what I do is I build networks. That's my job. And I build networks in the network. It's like the largest network of banks in Germany with a big red S, the Sparkasse. I think there is Sparkasse even in other countries, maybe you know it. And when I talk about networking at a bank, some of my friends say, what do you do there? And I say, it's about creating new ideas, it's about collaboration, it's about connecting people, and they are like, in a bank? Sure. But you know, banks, they really need new ideas, and we need different perspectives to create new ideas, and that's why it's so important to build networks. I want to talk about some experiences I had. There are some hands, but maybe because of 12 minutes me. I want to share some experiences and some learnings about communities I worked in, I created, and I started with social media. Like Peter said, I did a lot of music, more in my 20s, now I'm 44, but in my wild 20s, I was on stages like this with a microphone and tried to be successful. But however, it was about social media like MySpace. Do you remember MySpace, the social network, 2005 or 6? Then YouTube, Facebook, and now we have Spotify, SoundCloud, and whatever. It's about social networks, and I worked as a social media manager for some years, and then I worked for a startup, and then 2016, I started a new role at a bank in Rostock, and what we did there was creating a new community because we were bored by these business talks, business keynotes that never end. Because they talk and talk and talk. And we said, there has to be another way. So we created the 12 Minutes Me community, friends of us in Hamburg, and then we in Rostock. And the idea was, we chose 3 speakers, but we do it. And they have 12 minutes to talk about their topic, their project, their learnings maybe. Can be a startup, can be something else. And then there are 12 minutes to ask questions, and then there are 12 minutes for the community to network. So this developed into a network. So we have 12 Minutes Me in more than 20 cities, not only in Germany, but in whole Europe, and even Kapstadt in South Africa. So what did I learn from organizing it? And as you can see, even with something like this, sometimes it helps, with a little drink. It's about fun, and it's about getting people together, not because they have to, because they want to. And it was about learning, so if we want to learn something new, we have to get a lot of perspectives, and we have to combine these perspectives. So this is another experience. We created a community in Rostock where we do things like this. When it's getting cold. Like now in November, we can start again, it's ice bathing. It developed into something like a trend during the last 2 years, I think even in Berlin here. I don't know if you're going for an ice bath, but we did this just for the fun of it. And suddenly a lot of newspapers wrote about it, and then we said, okay, let's use the attention and do something good with it. So we started a crowdfunding campaign, and we collected money for homeless people with the hashtag Wir springen für Wärme ins kalte Wasser. That means we do it for the ones who freeze, so they don't have to freeze. And we collected 10,000 euros in 10 weeks, just because we built a community via Instagram and other networks and the media, and some testimonials like singers of rock bands, sporters, etc. And what I learned from it was, if you have a strong purpose, a good idea, people come and want to work for this purpose. And as you can see here, it's a lot of fun. Even this face, maybe you see it, that's David. It's not fun all the time because it's very cold. I think the coldest was 2 degrees in the Baltic Sea. So now we have communities of the Eisbademeisters of our idea we developed 2 years ago, not only in Rostock, but also in Hamburg. And this weekend we started in Berlin. So there are people who just do it for the fun and for collecting money. And we had, I think, 50,000 euros in Hamburg and Rostock in the first winter. And it's not only fun, but what I learned is that sometimes it can be difficult just jumping into cold water because you don't know how cold the water is, how do you react, but just try it. Third experience This is from my time where I went on stage to rap. So I don't know if you're familiar with hip hop. Someone? Yes. There are some hands. Very good. I started rapping when I was, I think, 16. It was 1996. We had the Olympics in Barcelona, the Dream Team, basketball, crisscross, bands like this, and we started rapping, just rapping the lyrics from the CDs. Maybe you remember back in the days. And I found out there is a big community, a big hip-hop community of people just trying it, and it was never about being the best, but just do it for the fun and get better and have respect for each other. So when I did this, we had a lot of success in our local area around Rostock. But a friend of mine, he kept on doing it, and in this community, he became new gigs, new concerts, and now he's one of the most famous pop stars in Germany called Materia. Maybe you know him. That's my friend from back in the days, and it happened because of this community idea. So we have another sportsman here, Boris Becker. I think you all know him. He's now sitting in his new department in London, behind bars, but that's another story. I think Boris Becker is something like a symbol, because in the 90s, where we got to know the internet, a lot of us in Germany said, okay, interesting, I try it. And then Boris Becker asked this question, am I in already? Bin ich schon drin? That was the German translation. And you see him smiling there, but a lot of Germans had this face, I don't know, maybe. And that's what I experienced when I talked with my parents. The internet, I don't know, what about the data? What about risks? But I think now it's very normal for all of us to be in networks, to be online. When I talk with my kids, I have 3 daughters, it's the most normal thing in the world. Our oldest daughter, Laila, she's 12 years old. She's on TikTok for 3 years now. Some of you are laughing. And she created a lot of video content, like 4 or 5 a day, just doing this. That's how I see it. Just doing this, hello, maybe other perspective, like that, and so on. And suddenly, as I saw it, she had nearly 10,000 followers in this network. And then something happened. She was banned. So she cried and was angry, and I heard her. I came to her room and said, what's up? She said, Dad, I was banned. TikTok, you have to do something. So I called 2 or 3 of my old friends, because I worked as a social media manager some years ago. And they said, no, we can't do anything, because the algorithm, like maybe the artificial intelligence or whatever, they screened it. And unfortunately, you're not old enough, because you have to be 13 to use TikTok. So turned out it was good for us as parents, because she was like addicted to it. And when we talk about networks, social networking, digital networking, I think there are a lot of advantages for us, but there are also the other sides. So I think we all know how likes can, what likes do with us. And we have to, new like, okay. So we have to think about what social networking can do for us, but we have to think how we use it. So who's on LinkedIn? I think everybody. LinkedIn is a good example of how we can network easily today. And I look at it as a big marketplace. Yes, we have our brands, employees, employers, we have sellers, and they say they do social selling, personal branding, all this. And we can look at it, just read our feed, or we can act and think about how we can use this network. Who of you thinks he uses this network? Who's active on LinkedIn? Just raise your hands. Okay, maybe we can talk about it later. But there is this old social media like rule or experience that I think 80% just read, about 80, 20% do things. And this is like networking on a conference like today. You can just sit on the side, have a look, drink something, talk with someone you know, or you can just go to someone and say, okay, hey, I'm Gabriel, who are you, what are you doing here, and so on. So it's on us to use this network, to use LinkedIn, to use conferences, and we have a lot of possibilities. And then we have our internal communities in our companies, and that's something that's very, underrated. Because companies were like pyramids in the past, yes, we had our command and control, and now we need these networks, we need people connecting, talking about rumors maybe, yes, like in the kitchen, at the coffee machine before Corona, where you met someone, and now maybe on Zoom or on other conferences, just exchanging ideas, perspectives, and that's like the structure of a company, that's like the bones. And we have our formal and informal communities, and I think we need a lot of new tools here as well, like in marketing, and we need new networking tools as well in our companies. So maybe we can talk about this later. I have this podcast, New Work Chat, since 2018. There were very good-looking guests like Peter. Why do you laugh? And I had the privilege to honor to speak to a lot of interesting people here from Germany, like Philipp Westermeier from Hamburg. He created the Online Marketing Rockstars. That's one of the biggest media platforms, communities. There is this Online Marketing Rockstars conference. I think there were 40, 50,000 people in Hamburg this year again, after Corona. He has his own podcast that's in his studio. I was lucky to be there. He has social media platforms, newsletter, everything. So I asked him, Philipp, how did you use your networks? How did you become successful? And he said, I just had the idea and maybe the ambition and, of course, the fire. But then I had people who wanted to work with me, so who followed me. So the question is, if you're building a network, how do you find followers? So in the past, we just had our people, and we told them what they have to do, and now we need followers. So it's more about leading and not so more about management, maybe. Where I come from, Rostock, we have this big harbor, and when I was born in 1980, there was a different country, the GDR. Germany was divided, and this was like the eastern part, and work was like everything. So you can imagine mothers, dads went to kindergarten at 6 o'clock in the morning, leaving the babies there. Everything was for the work, and it was so important because it was not just doing it for the money, but for the system and against the bad enemy. So it was a common idea, and that's an important thing we have to keep in mind. The 80s and of course the 90s, maybe the zeros, were like what we call now the old world of work, where we had our managers, yes, the customer were known, we had to put a lot of money in the media, push the products in the market. Yes, our people were the resources, like chess figures, we could take them and throw them out maybe, and it was all about command and control. But now, I think all of you know it, the world has changed, not only because of the digital era and the globalization, but because of Corona and the crisis we are dealing with today. So we are talking about the VUCA world today. Yes, it's volatile and complex. Nobody knows how the company will be in 1 year or maybe in 6 weeks. So it's very hard to predict things. So what we can do is just build communities, build networks, and collect ideas and perspectives and try things. And I want to talk about something we tried at this bank station where I was in Rostock, the OSPA, yes, it's there on the roof, called the Ostseesparkasse Rostock, very traditional, people in suits. I had to wear one when I started there. It was a strange thing to do for me in the beginning. A lot of my friends asked me, why do you work for a bank? Because I was at some agencies before, worked for a startup. And the interesting thing was, I talked with them, and I got the impression they are ready for transformation. So this is the important thing. We have to be ready to transform, to learn new things. And the question is, why do we have to change? Why do we need transformation? In our case, we have this, the GAFA, yes, and they're coming into the financial sector, of course. So banks, especially banks here in Germany, they really have to create new ideas and do something, whatever, but do something. So I said, we have this, we need a new structure. We need new ideas from everywhere, not just from the top. So we need a new network, something like this. We need maybe new tools. Yes, we need new methods, how we work together. So what we did was we were like the first bank in Germany who implemented a social network, something like a Facebook. That's what I told them. It's something like a Facebook. So everybody was on Facebook in 2016. Now it's another story, but we started sharing. Before we send it information, yes, hundreds of emails, BCC and so on, you know it, ping pong, email ping pong. And then we started with an enterprise social network, and that was strange for a lot of people who worked there, because now things were like transparent, and we had to trust, to learn trust maybe. And what we did is we started a community here as well called the Connectors, because our social intranet, we called it OSPA Connect. Our aim was to connect the people. And then we started these communities of volunteers who said, okay, we work on this topic. Maybe you know this cartoon, yes? That was the exact experience that we had at the OSPA. We had a big event, and we asked who wants to change, who wants new things and a better future. So everybody was raising the hand. But when it was about who wants to change, who wants to lead the change maybe, it was different. So it's about responsibility, but I said, let's not make it so difficult. Let's think in easy little steps and in quick wins. Let's put our heads together in our communities, in our teams, and think about new possibilities. Think about what we see in other companies maybe. Exchange ideas. So what we did is we bought this robot, this human robot called Pepper, maybe you know him. In 2016, it was like the shit. Now in 2022, it's like a little bit lame maybe. There are other robots, okay. But in 2016, it was very hyped, and we had a lot of people, customers coming to us, and they were very curious. And Pepper, we called them Rudi. Rudi could speak, could answer your questions, could guess your age, your mood, something like this. So we didn't know what to do with Pepper and how to use this tool, but we put our heads together, and we found a way to work with him. And you see him here with our team in a branch of the bank. And it was not everything was positive. We had some fails, but we had them together. So this is the important thing when you build communities. You collect people who want to work for this, who have the chance to say what's on their mind, and then you learn together. And it's about learning in a complex VUCA world. So we started to write about these experiences. We had a podcast in the bank, one of the first banks with an own podcast. And there was this question, how will the future of work look like? And sometimes when I'm a guest in a podcast, I get the question because I have this other podcast. So Gabriel, you have to know it. How will the future of work look like? I don't know what you think about it, but I think there are three things, and I want to talk about this at last in my keynote. I think the future of work will be hybrid, or it is hybrid. Yes, there is this other quote, like the future is here, but it's very differently distributed. I think the future of work is hybrid, so there will be the office, maybe in a different way. Maybe we meet there to collaborate, work creative together. There will be the possibility to work at home, to work at third places like co-working spaces. But the question is, how do we connect? So how do we connect with our team, with our colleagues, with our management? And that's the biggest question, and maybe we can discuss about it. Second thing, I think the future of work will be individualized. That means there will be no more discussions about the 4-day work week. Everyone will have another work week, maybe 2 days, 3 days, 7 days. I think in the future, everybody will customize his own style of work, tool set, and everything that's about it. And I'm a big family guy, so maybe workation will be more important in the future too. I like the idea when I talked about it with Peter in my podcast, just to take my family and work from, Copenhagen. I was in Copenhagen this weekend, and I had some moments where I thought, okay, I could stay here. Just need to get my family. And the third thing is, I think the future of work will be purpose-driven. So when we talk with the younger people, like the Generation Z, they're not about these things like, I need this job titles, I need as much money as I can, but they really want to do something with a purpose. They just want to do something they can relate to, and they want to follow. Maybe they want to lead, I don't know, but they want to follow, and we need to think about doing meaningful things and doing it together, and that is the thing about networking. So coming to an end, I think what's important for companies is that companies will be community managers. That's what I did when I worked as a social media community manager years ago. I think that's the role that companies need or have to do, because when you think about LinkedIn, as a company you can sit back and maybe post something like a press text, or you can think about it, be active, not because of your employees or the people you want, the talent you want, but also the customers. And the second thing is, I think employees will be networkers. We all are networkers. We are human beings, so we are social, of course. But when we think about the war of talents and all this, it's about getting the right job, and it's about to learn. So I think this is very important for us too. So the most important thing about networking, and this is my last slide for you, and then I'm lucky to answer your question, I think it's about giving. Because when you're building networks, you can't people tell what they have to do, you just offer something, maybe an idea, purpose, something like we did with the Eisbademeisters. We just said we want to collect money, who's with us? Or with 12 Minutes Me, where we said everybody 12 minutes, just short, connect, drink a beer, something like this. It's about giving, and just when we give, we can build relationships with trust. So people follow givers. There is this very good book, like Adam Grant wrote it, maybe you know it. It's about giving and taking, and who's interested about this topic giving, maybe you can read it. So this is my message for today. Think about what you can give on LinkedIn, not just I want this from you, I want to sell, like the cold messages, cold pitches, but what do you have to offer, which problem you can solve, and then build your communities, build your networks around companies and in your companies. Thanks.
Great, thank you very much, Gabriel. So maybe we can pull the slide on screen.
This was a GIF, but I'm sure you can remember it.
Really good. So whilst we're getting the questions on the screen, looking at the time, we don't have too much time for questions, but I have 2 on my own. No, I don't need the clicker, thanks. You can keep it. It's not a gift. Speaking about giving, is that like the next step in sharing? Because you said sharing before, and now it's giving. Is there a difference? Has it evolved?
I think sharing is like looking in the past, talk about what you did, maybe what you're doing, but giving is more thinking about the future. So when you give something, you think what will be important tomorrow, maybe.
Strong. Nice, really good. So no questions yet. I have got one other one because you're talking Sparkasse, like big German corporate, right? Network, but also the future of work. The term that comes up in my mind right away is proximity bias. Did you already get your first question from a worried Sparkasse employee working maybe 80% from home, not in a suit, like waving to his or her manager, like, I'm also here, I'm working, I'm doing a great job, but afraid of being overlooked? Or is that not something which is like of a key concern of a Sparkasse employee today?
Not only Sparkasse. I see it in a lot of companies. I see a lot of managers who are afraid still, after 2 years. A lot of them were hoping that we are going back now. And it's all about trust. That's what I think. And about work transparently, but it's like connected to trust. I know some workers and some managers, they have their problems with remote work and so on, and they say, let's put everything on the table so it's transparent who you're working with, what you're working on, and that helps.
Very good. Thank you. Maybe you'll be doing a show later today for us. A little bit of rapping would be pretty cool to hear. And there's one other question. Now, maybe you can spend like half a minute of answering. Like, how do you actually start a conversation with someone sitting next to you, other than maybe just a starting conversation? But some thoughts?
I think in Germany we have, like I see it, we have the so-called business meetings, conferences, and then it's all the time. It's about what do you do, and here's my card, and it's very too pushy maybe. And then we have our conferences and everything without work and business, and then we talk about everything else. I would love to have both on one place, and I hope that work can be something positive for more of us. So maybe we talk about what we do and why we do it. That's something I'm interested in when I have my guests in my podcast. I not just want to know what you do, but why do you do it? What motivates you? What drives you? And that's something you can ask, maybe even today. Why do you do what you do? And then there's a good chance that you get to know the other person better.
Really good. I guess it starts with genuine interest, right? In the people sitting next to you and just asking. All right, so as I said, we don't have much time for other questions, but there are a couple coming in. He's going to hang around anyway for a couple of more hours, so just, reach out to him and ask the questions that were still left open. We'll also do something after the event with any unanswered questions. So with that, Gabriel Rath, thank you very much.
Thank you.